Test. There we go. Yeah, I know. That's my best profile. It's right behind the pillar. Everybody have a good week? Ready for a new one? Ready to throw another log on the fire? Well, it's good because we got a couple of cold days and then it's going to get almost downright hot. So all those rumors about Oklahoma weather are going to be proved this week, supposedly. Three friends' funerals. He's talking about it. When your constituents start passing away, it's mindful, very mindful. I was talking to Lloyd not long after Floyd passed away, and you know they're identical twins, and it's Charlotte's dad, Willis, got to a certain age where he'd read the obituaries every day, and he would call out to Dora, her mom, and say, "Dora, so-and-so died, and he's 3 years younger than I am." And he was counting down. And so I was asking Lloyd, what's it like when an identical twin dies? Is there survival grief? Is there, why not me? Why him and not me? Because in theory, we're identical, which obviously you're not. But we had a really good discussion about that because I was wondering about twins. There's a special connection there. And, you know, they had a very special connection. In fact, I don't know if he shared with you guys, but Floyd had been in the hospital, and as I remember, I believe it was cardiac surgery, bypass or something, in Oklahoma City. And Lloyd went to visit him, and had visited him a while. Came out of the room, was headed out, and the cardiologist was coming in, and the surgery had happened the day before. And the cardiologist, and he saw him, and he said, "What are you doing up?" And he said, "I've had it. I'm out of here." And he said they were always pulling those kinds of pranks on people. But you can imagine that surgeon just... All right, look at Mark 9. I want to take just a couple of minutes and go back and revisit the verse 27. After the healing of the demon-possessed boy, as we had talked about, the expectations, the man had come to, brought the son to Jesus. Jesus had been up at the Transfiguration. And so there's a big consternation that's happened where scribes are arguing with the disciples of Jesus because over their lack of ability, apparently, to cast out the demon. And that's a question they're going to ask Jesus a little bit later is, why were we not able? And Jesus' answer was, this kind only comes out with prayer. Now, the King James says prayer and fasting, but fasting's not there. It's just prayer. But I think what the translators are trying to suggest to us is it's a lifestyle thing, that there has to be a life of devotion, and I think there's truth in that. But so in verse 27, Jesus took him by the hand, raised him, and he got up. When he had come into the house, his disciples began questioning him privately. "Why could we not cast it out?" But he said to them, "This kind cannot come out but by anything but by prayer." Now in Matthew chapter 10, verse 5, these 12 Jesus sent out with instructions to them, saying, "Do not go in the way of the Gentiles, do not enter any city of the Samaritans, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you receive, freely give." In Mark chapter 6, verse 7, he summoned the 12 and began to send them out in pairs. And he was giving them authority over the unclean spirits. And he instructed them they should take nothing for the journey except a mere staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belt, etc., etc. So he has given them the authority. This should not be a surprise to them. They're not on the spot kind of a thing. There's precedent here. And I think partly that's why they're curious. Why couldn't we cast out the demon? And there's a lot, I think, to be suggested about that. He's given them authority over them. But there has to be, and remember, power doesn't come from them. Authority does. Power has to come from God. And I think that's what he's showing them is, well, if you will, with great authority comes great responsibility. But in John chapter 11, verse 39, Jesus said to her, "Did I not say to you, if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" And so they removed the stone. Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank thee that thou hearest me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people standing around, I said, that they may believe that thou didst sent me." And when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." So before the healing of Lazarus, Jesus prayed. And he prayed, "I know you hear me, but thank you for hearing me. And this is important because I want the people to believe." And what Jesus is demonstrating is where the power comes from. He has all authority. All authority has been given to him on heaven and earth. He mentioned that. But here we have the power demonstrated. Also in Matthew 19, and some of the children were brought to him so that he may lay hands on them and pray. And the disciples rebuked them. Jesus said, "Let the children alone," etc. So the notion of prayer and the power of prayer, and we talk a lot about the power of prayer. What do you think might be going on? Certainly these were prayerful men, but what do you think he's trying to teach them about? And guys, this casting out of demons tends to be the big one. That's why it says he gave them authority to cast out demons and to lay on hands and to heal the sick, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think he's trying to teach them here about their failure? Yes. Authority, then power. And it's human tendency to begin to believe when we do amazing things that we have the power to do them, rather than have been granted the power to do them, whatever the amazing things are. And that's, guys, if you look at the life of David, that's what happened. Constantly attributing to God, constantly seeking the guidance of God, the empowerment of God, etc. And as he became confident on in his age about what he could do or what the nation could do, is evidenced by deciding to take a census and find out how big the nation is and how many warriors they have and all of that. And that is, it's not just ignoring the power of God in victory or whatever, it is replacing the power of God. And God started killing people. This is serious stuff. And it's amazing to me that Jesus didn't go into a diatribe about this. He just said this kind comes out with a lot of prayer. And this is human downfall. This is happens to each one of us. In Acts chapter 8, verse 18, "Now when Simon saw the Spirit was bestowed through the laying on of the apostles' hands, he offered them money, saying, 'Give this authority to me as well, so that everyone on whom I lay hands may receive the Holy Spirit.' But Peter said to him, 'May your silver perish with you, because you thought you could obtain the gift of God with money.'" Now notice he didn't say, "Give me the power." He said, "Give me the authority. Give me the authority to be able to give the Holy Spirit to others. And Peter jumped on him. And I think it's today's English version. Rather than saying, may your money perish with you, it says, take your money and go to hell. So what Peter is saying is this is heading you toward destruction. Take your money with you when you go. And that's when Simon then pleads with him, please take, forgive me this, etc. But see what he was attracted to, because he was a conjurer, he was a sorcerer. What he was attracted to, and anybody who is a conjurer wants the real thing. Anybody who deals with illusions would love the power to do what the illusion lies about. And magicians, they major in that. Okay. One of the things let's go ahead and read some more in 9. I want you to see what's coming up. And I want you to see kind of the juxtaposition of this kind coming out only in prayer, and then what they're going to demonstrate. So verse 30, and they left that place and passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where they were, because he was teaching his disciples. He said to them, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise. But they did not understand what he meant. And notice this, and they were afraid to ask him about it. They came to Capernaum. When he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? But they kept quiet, because on the way they had argued about who was the greatest. Sitting down, Jesus saw the 12 and said, anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all. And he took a little child whom he placed among them. Taking the child in his arms, he said to them, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me. Teacher, said John, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he was not one of us. Do not stop him, Jesus said, for no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against us is for us. Truly I tell you, anyone who gives you a cup of water in my name because you belong to the Messiah will certainly not lose their reward. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them have a large millstone were hung around their neck and they were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than with 2 hands go into hell, where the fire never goes out. And if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than to have 2 feet and be thrown into hell. And if your eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and to be thrown into hell, where the worm that eats them does not die and the fire is not quenched. Everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can you be made salty again? Have salt among yourselves and be at peace with each other. What do they do right after they're trying to cast out this demon and fail? What's the next description of what they were doing? It's open book, you can cheat. They're out traveling. Jesus asked them, what were you talking about? They didn't answer him. Why didn't they answer him? Yeah, because what were they arguing about? Who's the greatest? He's going to say as a result of this, probably the most definitive statement about who we are. And what sets us apart from, what fundamentally sets us apart from the ways of the world. Okay? This is going to be a profound statement. And we've heard it so many times, it's easy for us to take it for granted. But I want you to see the context. They try to cast out the demon, can't do it. And as they're along the road, they're discussing who's the greatest among them. Now, when you're talking about who's the greatest, what might that discussion look like? Say again? Arrogance. Okay. Pride, arrogance, competitiveness. Yes. If I ascend, you have to descend. Okay. That's what greatest is about. It's a put down. Okay. Even the discussion of great is a put down. So they're having this argument about who is greater. How can you cast out a demon with prayer if in the next breath, so to speak, you're arguing about who's the greatest? If they're talking about who's the greatest, what are they focusing on? Themselves. Their abilities, their power, their personality, their this, their that. And Jesus, knowing what they're arguing about, asked them, and basically what he did, he asked them to confess. Why could they not cast out the demon?
They were trying to take the credit themselves. They weren't relying on his power that was bestowed upon them. They didn't believe it.
Yes.
So they wanted the credit themselves.
Yes. So the idea of a magic wand is ultimately dangerous. Because if I'm Harry Potter, I will impress myself with what I do, which means I want to do more, etc. Okay. But the power is not with me. Whoever holds the wand has the power, etc. That's manipulation. If we're arguing who's greatest in the kingdom, what does that do with our relationship to God? What he's going to show them is what you should be arguing about who's the least. What you should be striving for is to be the least. Now, guys, this is tough teaching because who of us does this? Who of us strives to be least? Who of us strives to be walked on, taken advantage of, be everybody's servant? And that's what he's going to say. Who strives to be that? Who strives to be the one that's put down? Who strives to be all the things about Jesus that we see and all the things that the Pharisees and all of those do to him, he's calling us to do the same thing. Now, he's been talking about, for the last 2 chapters, he's been talking about his impending death. And he's been trying to get them ready for it. And they're concerned what happens if you die, but he takes it up a step and says, if you're going to be my disciple, you've got to take up your cross and you have to die. And if you don't give up everything that you have, including your life, you cannot be my disciple. He just made it he made his death personal to them. This is not, oh, horror, we're going to have to watch you do this. Oh, horror, we're going to have to lose our best friend and our master and all of those. No. You're going to lose you in order to be my disciple. Okay? Now, he's taught them that, and now they're arguing about who's the greatest. They're not getting it any more than we have a tendency to get it. Because every human being desires ascendancy. What are some very practical ways that we demonstrate a desire for ascendancy? What? Promotion at work. Which means somebody else has to lose out or some other people have to lose out. And rather than being their champion, I become their competition. Good example. What else? Okay. Yes. One that makes the best grades, the one that gets the best scholarships, the one that gets the best jobs or the promotions at the job, the one that gets the best education. This is as American as it gets, guys. Who are the people we don't want to be like? Some of them live around us. Yes. We don't want to be poor. We don't want to be diseased. We don't want to be... What I want you to understand is much of the battle that Jesus has is part of how we define success and greatness in the United States. I'm not putting down the United States. This is human tendency, okay? You can have a totally socialistic, communistic, and you're still going to have competitiveness. Even though supposedly, theoretically, everybody's on the same level, they're not. And you can look at any of those nations and see they're just as competitive as anybody else. It's just the opportunities. All right. So he goes back to describing his demise. And they're afraid to ask him about it. Why are they afraid of him?
I think they're afraid of death.
Afraid of death? Okay. So what is he's trying to teach him, they're afraid to ask about it, and so they don't ask, and what do they not receive because they don't ask? More information, solace, help, teachings about how this is all going to work out, et cetera, et cetera. That's what denial does. Denial prevents us from getting help. It prevents us from getting progress. It gets us from growing because we're denying reality, and reality denied will slap you in the face. Because you deny it, and it will not be denied. Reality will never be denied. And it's a self-destructive, zero-sum game to play this game of denial with reality.
Do you think also too that they don't want to ask because they don't want the accountability? Because once you know, then you're going to be accountable.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, Peter's been rebuked. Get behind me, Satan. How long am I going to put up with you guys? And please understand, as I've talked about before, this is all getting very serious. It's now getting very compressed. We're headed right down the barrel to the final week. Jesus knows this is coming. He's heading to Jerusalem, okay? And he's going there for one thing, to be put on the cross. Well, to fulfill everything and to be put on the cross. And so right after he tells them, this kind of only comes out with prayer. Look at verse 30. From there they went out and began to go to Galilee, and he was unwilling for anyone to know about it, for he was teaching his disciples and telling them. So he's staying away, doesn't want anybody to know where he is because these crowds gather. Remember, anytime he had crowds gather, he would dispense them because he doesn't want to accelerate, hey, there's a rebellion going on up in Galilee. You need to know about it. You need to get the Romans up there and shut this down because this guy's claiming to be king of the Jews, or, all of that. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, the Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. When he has been killed, he will rise 3 days later. But they did not understand this statement, and they were afraid to ask him. Now, one of my favorite things about that is they're beginning to understand they don't understand. And that's a great place to be. When you know that you don't know. When you think you know and you don't know, you're not going to learn. When you know you don't know, there's a motivation there. When they came to Capernaum, he was in the house. He began to question them. What were you discussing on the way? But they kept silent. Why did they keep silent? They kept silent. And that says, kept silent, for on the way they had discussed with one another which one of them was the greatest. Why are they silent about that? They know it's wrong. To some degree, to some level. They've gotten into this argument of, where do you think this argument may have come from? Good point. All right. I want you to imagine 10 of them. And I want you to imagine 2 of them coming back with Jesus for the transfiguration. And I want you to imagine the 10 saying, what were y'all doing? Can't tell you. We'll tell you sometime, but I can't tell you now. Why could they not tell? Jesus told them not to. Chose 2 on purpose. Gave the presentation to only 2. Could have given it to 12, gave it to only 2. And he said, now, I want you to keep this to you until I rise again. And remember, then they started getting into a discussion. What does he mean by rise again? And all of that. So they come back to the 10, and the 10 said, where'd you guys go? Can't tell you. Well, who do you think you are? Possibly thinking in their minds, why do you choose them? Why not us? What is he excluding us from? And then, we can't cast out a demon, and we're arguing with the scribes about what's going on here, and if you guys are his followers, why aren't you? And Jesus comes, and he's fed up with the whole thing. Now, they're on the road. What are they trying to do? Now, when he asks them about it, they're ashamed. But what are they trying to do? Oh, yeah. Wow. Good point. God has given them authority over demons. They're trying to express authority over one another. To do what? What do they hope to accomplish in this? All right, when this kingdom comes, who's going to be president? Who's going to be general?
They're trying to establish a little pecking order amongst themselves to see who's going to be top dog when it all comes.
And sub-top dog and sub-top dog. Who has the greatest, who believes they have the greatest opportunity to be top dog? Peter and John. John, because he's got a special relationship. Peter, because he's older. And because Jesus has interacted with Peter differently than he has anybody else. Interacts with John differently than anybody else. And guys, to be honest with you, we don't have much discussion of many of them, the 12. Is that a statement of their character? Is that a statement of their place? Is Peter greater because he's mentioned more?
No, he's greater because God's getting ready for
Okay? What's Jesus want them to know about this discussion of who's the greatest? Okay. And the way to be great through God is to be everybody's servant. Everybody's, oh boy, get me, get me. And guys, not only do we not understand this, because we've never had slaves, we've never had servants in that sense. Servants are always paid. That's very different. We don't understand slavery, and in fact, we are diametrically opposed to it, and he's calling us to that. As I said, this is the most definitive statement of our difference from the world. Not just that our sins are taken away, but that we are servant to everyone. Can you think of a non-biblical character that demonstrates servant to everybody? Okay. Any others? Let me warn you, to find them, you're going to look down on them. Because they're pleasing everybody else. And we teach them, you can't please others unless you feel good about yourself. We teach them, unless you glorify yourself, you cannot glorify other people. That it comes from within you. And what Jesus is teaching them, it comes from within a child. Verse 34, and they kept silent on the way, because they had discussed with one another which one of them was the greatest. And sitting down, he called the 12 and said to them, if anyone wants to be first, he shall be last, what? Of all. So you take the list of apostles and you put them in order of importance from Peter on down. The one who is numbered 12 is the one who is most Christ-like. If anyone wants to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. And taking a child, he set him before them, taking him in his arms. He said to them, whoever receives one child like this in my name receives me. Whoever receives me does not receive me, but him who sent me. Now he's talking about being servant and all. Why does he take a child?
Because amongst adults, a child has no aspirations.
Yeah. Innocence. Service. When do human beings develop a sense of self? When do humans become concerned about their sense of self, their identity, their place, their all of that? Do you ever remember as a child crawling out of bed, maybe change the clothes that you're wearing and go outside and play without doing your hair, without coiffing, with no concern for what you look like, no concern about the clothes you're wearing, it's just all about going and having a good time. Do you ever remember that? And it changed, didn't it? It changed to where, as I mentioned before, and it just, guys, I want you to think about it. In a nation that talks about it brave for a woman to not wear makeup, look what we're doing. To be yourself takes bravery. To present yourself to the world takes bravery. To hide, that's normal. It takes bravery to be who you are. We're damaging people. Because we're teaching them you have to be something other than your fallen, broken self. Now, what we need to be different is the power of God shining through us, and all the time remembering that we are powerless, and always will be powerless. Now, authoritative, but powerless. Does a child have power? Dave.
I think there's one word that sums all this up, what Jesus is trying to teach them. Do not be jealous of your fellow man. I think that's what drives all of us in this story that we're talking about.
Right.
Jealousy.
Jealousy. So what's the attitude? What is a childlike attitude if Peter and John are able to go away with Jesus and something amazing happens because their countenance has totally changed? Their view of the world has totally changed. You don't have that kind of stuff. And so they come back, and obviously something special happened to them. What's the attitude of those that it didn't happen to? Yeah.
They're jealous of the other two.
Yes.
That is a powerful emotion.
Oh, it is. It is. Because jealousy seeks power. Jealousy seeks ascendancy. It seeks hierarchy. It seeks better than, because I'm feeling worse than. So how should the 10 feel about the 2? What's the childlike response? What's the Christ-like response? You're cool. I am so excited this happened to you. And I would love when the time comes that you can share that with me. But I am so excited for you. Now, how could someone do that? Because I'm complete. I'm with Jesus. I'm empowered by God through Him. I'm complete. It's when you get to a point in life when you realize there's nothing I want, there's nothing I need. My life is complete. The next step from that is, therefore, I'm ready to go to the next life. Peace. Look at all the things that I have. Well, look at all the things you don't have. But I have everything that I need and everything I want. I remember George Carlin years ago, before he went off his nut and got crazy and mean and all that, he was saying, you know, and this was probably in the 80s or 90s, and he was saying, you know, all I ever hear is baby boomers talking about, my needs aren't being met, my needs aren't being met, my needs aren't being met. And there was a lot of discussion among churches of Christ how to meet felt needs among Christians or among visitors or whatever. And I loved what he said, because he said, my needs aren't being met, my needs aren't being met. He said, get rid of some needs. Get rid of some needs. What do you really need? What do we really need, guys? What do we really need?
What you really need is God in your life at all times.
Okay. Jesus said, don't be anxious in your lives about what you will wear, what you will eat. Because look at all the birds and the animals. Do they starve to death? Look at all the things around you. Do they have clothing? Even the lily of the fields. There's not a sparrow that drops. What did he limit needs to? And not just limit them to, what did he model? Did Jesus have food? Where'd it come from? A lot of times it came from the corners of the field because that's where poor people ate. And he got in trouble because sometimes they were doing that and they hadn't gone through ceremonial washings and all of that. Did he have clothing? How much? Do you need a change of clothing? Well, I mean, really, seriously. I mean, when you look at needs and when we learn from not just his teachings, but his example, get rid of some needs because they're not needs. And when you consider them needs, what comes with that? Remember, he started out, do not be anxious. Where does anxiety come from? As Dave said it, envy. Envy. Now, guys, he's modeling and he's teaching what goes way beyond where we're comfortable. Way beyond. Because he says, be anxious in nothing. Because God is going to give you, he didn't even promise a place to live. He didn't promise electricity. He didn't promise cable TV. He didn't promise a V8. He didn't promise anything. He didn't promise transportation. And we take all this for granted, don't we? And what happens when the electricity goes out? We're helpless. And we're complaining about it. And then we're calling, hey, over there, got electricity? Yeah, our electricity's on. I think I've shared with you, my sister and I would come home from college, Christmas. We're in Dallas, and an ice storm comes, and it knocks down all of the power lines. It knocks down the phone lines, and we are isolated. And the house is dark, and the house had a fireplace in the living room, so we kept throwing wood on the fire. Dad had always provided wood. And we're sitting around grumbling, and Dad finally had enough of it. And he came in there and said, I cannot believe I raised two unthankful kids like you. And he said, you're complaining about the way I lived all the time that I was growing up. You're complaining about, and he said, how have I failed in not teaching you appreciation, but at teaching you expectation? Boy, he stormed out of the room, and we were smoking. We had just been broiled. And at first, we're feeling sorry for ourselves because now on top of our ruined Christmas, Dad just crawled all over us. And then we started realizing, he's right. We got out some popcorn, and over the fire, we popped popcorn. We sewed it together to make strings to put on the tree because we had no lights for the tree, et cetera, et cetera. And guys, it became one of the greatest Christmases. Not just because we got to experience a Currier and Ives 1800s Christmas, but because of what my dad had taught me. You got fire to heat you and cook with. There are cans in the cabinet. What are you lacking? And more than that, how do you get off thinking you're so worthy? And guys, it upset him because he felt like he had failed us. He had given us too much good. We had prospered over all of the... Guys, my grandpa would come to my father and would give him and this is Depression age, and he would give him 4 .22 shells. And he would tell him, we need some squirrels or rabbit. And Dad had to make sure that with those 4, he brought home, and he said, I really resented when people came to stay. in the winter. Because I would have to get up earlier. I would have to hunt more because that's where our meat came from. He never took me hunting, and I had an uncle tell me, "Are you as good a shot as your dad is?" And I said, "I didn't even know he was a good shot." And I went and asked him about it, and he said, when I got to the point in my life where I didn't have to kill what I was going to eat, I decided I'm never again. I mean, just the idea that somebody else is going to kill it and bring it to me, and all I have to do is give them money, that's just amazing. So he was an anti-hunter because he had had to do it. He had to live by hunting, and that changed him. And what Jesus is teaching about being a servant is, and guys, one of the greatest days in our lives is we can let it go. Because we don't deserve it. It's a blessing that God has given to us, but when it makes us start feeling great, and not just great, but greater, I am better, or I have greater opportunity, or whatever, than so-and-so, that's when it becomes destructive. Because then what we're doing is we're talking about who's greatest in the kingdom, who's greatest in the church, who's greatest in culture. And guess what? When your mind's there, you're not going to be able to cast out demons. The more we think we can do, the less we can accomplish. The less, listen to me because this is so important, the less we think we can accomplish, the more we can do, because we will call on the power of God, using the authority that Jesus has given us to tap into his power. What goes along with the weaker I am is the attitude of a servant. That's why Paul boasted in his weakness. He wasn't being cute. He was being honest. I have learned to embrace my weakness because in that the power of God can be demonstrated. I love my weakness because God's power can shine through that, and it can't shine through my strength because I don't have strength. That's a denial of him. Let's take a break, get ready for our assembly.